Welcome back to Fitness and Mind Wellness. Today, we're uncovering what no one dares to say, the real truth about cancer. Stay with us. This might just change the way you think about life, health, and healing forever. Cancer. The word itself strikes fear into hearts, silences rooms, and creates waves of uncertainty in every mind it touches. Yet, for all the fear it evokes, few truly understand what it means, what causes it, and what can be done to prevent or overcome it. In today's deep dive, we're sitting down with Dr. Charlotte Hayes, a leading oncologist and integrative medicine expert who has dedicated her life to uncovering the hidden truths about cancer, not just as a disease of the body, but as a signal from the soul, a whisper from nature that something deep within us and around us needs to change. Dr. Hayes begins by reminding us that cancer is not an invader, it is a mirror. Every cell that turns rogue, every tumor that begins to grow, is part of us. The human body is not at war with itself without reason. The roots of cancer are entangled with our environment, our lifestyle, our emotions, and even the way we think. For decades, modern medicine has focused on killing cancer cells, but rarely asked why they appear in the first place. The truth, she says, lies in the delicate balance between our biology and our behavior. In her quiet yet confident tone, Dr. Hayes shares stories from her clinical experience. She talks about patients who came to her after being told they had months to live. Yet, years later, they were still alive, vibrant, and full of energy. What made the difference? It wasn't just the drugs or the surgeries, though they played their part. It was mindset, it was nutrition, it was faith in the body's ability to heal when given the right environment. She explains that cancer cells thrive in chaos, in inflammation, in stress, in toxicity, and that peace, both internal and external, can be just as powerful a treatment as any medication. Dr. Hayes paints a vivid picture of how the modern world feeds disease. Our air, filled with pollutants and microplastics, our food, laced with chemicals that the human body never evolved to digest, our minds, constantly bombarded with stress, fear, and disconnection. The body absorbs all of this, every toxin, every emotional wound, every moment of exhaustion, until one day something snaps. A cell forgets how to die, begins to replicate uncontrollably, and a spark is lit. This is how cancer begins, she says. Quietly, invisibly, and long before symptoms ever show. Yet, despite this grim picture, Dr. Hayes believes in hope more than anything. She tells the story of a man named Jacob, a 52-year-old father who was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. He refused to surrender. Instead, he rebuilt his life from the inside out. He changed what he ate, how he moved, how he thought. He started meditating daily, cutting toxic relationships from his life, and spending more time in nature. When doctors reviewed his scans months later, his tumors had shrunk by nearly half. Was it a miracle? Dr. Hayes shakes her head gently. It was biology aligning with intention, she says, the body responding to harmony. She points out that the immune system is our most powerful weapon, yet it's often asleep when we need it most. Chronic stress suppresses it, poor diet weakens it, and unresolved trauma keeps it confused. Cancer cells, she explains, are clever. They learn how to hide from immune cells like a thief in the dark. But when we reduce inflammation and restore inner balance, those same immune cells can recognize the enemy again and begin the work of healing. The key isn't to fight harder, but to align better with nature, with truth, with peace. Dr. Hayes reflects on how Western medicine has made incredible progress in treating cancer. Surgeries are more precise, drugs more targeted, radiation more refined. Yet, she believes that the greatest breakthroughs won't come from technology alone. They'll come from understanding the human being as a whole, mind, body, and spirit. She describes cases where traditional medicine failed, but when combined with meditation, nutritional therapy, and emotional healing, recovery began. You can't heal the body without healing the mind, she says softly, and you can't heal the mind without reconnecting to something greater than yourself. The conversation shifts to the subject of prevention. Dr. Hayes insists that prevention is not about fear, it's about awareness. She talks about the power of the gut, calling it the second brain. A healthy gut, rich in good bacteria, can regulate inflammation and support immune strength. But our modern diets, full of sugar, processed fats, and artificial additives, destroy that ecosystem. She encourages people to return to whole foods, to eat what the earth provides, to see food as medicine rather than mere fuel. Dr. Hayes also emphasizes the role of emotions. Suppressed anger, grief, and chronic sadness, she says, don't just fade away. They lodge themselves in the body, influencing hormones, immune responses, and even gene expression. We cannot separate mental health from physical health, she explains. When people begin to forgive, to let go, to find peace, I've seen blood markers change. I've seen inflammation drop. I've seen scans that stunned even the most skeptical doctors. Her words echo a deeper truth. That healing isn't always about doing more, but about undoing the patterns that made us sick. We live in a culture that rewards overwork, overthinking, and overconsumption. Cancer, she suggests, is a collective signal that humanity has drifted too far from balance. The soil is sick, the air is sick, and so we too become sick. But within that realization lies power, because what we have created, we can also change. Dr. Hayes takes a moment to discuss something often overlooked, the role of purpose. She says that one of the most consistent traits she's seen in long-term survivors is a deep sense of meaning. They don't just want to live, they know why they want to live. They have something or someone they love so deeply that the body responds. Studies show that feelings of love, gratitude, and connection can literally strengthen the immune system, altering biochemistry in ways that science is only beginning to understand. Healing, she says, is not only a physical process, it's emotional evolution. She then takes us through the idea of terrain theory, that the state of the internal environment determines whether disease can thrive. When the terrain is toxic, acidic, and stressed, cancer finds a home. But when it's oxygen-rich, alkaline, and peaceful, cancer struggles to survive. While not dismissing genetics or external factors, Dr. Hayes highlights that epigenetics, the way lifestyle and emotions can turn genes on or off, plays a massive role. Genes load the gun, she says, but environment pulls the trigger. There's a long silence before she continues, as if weighing her next words carefully. We've been taught to fear cancer, she says. But what if, instead of fear, we met it with understanding? What if we listen to what it's trying to teach us? Her perspective isn't naive. She's seen death up close, seen families broken by the disease. Yet she's also seen rebirth. People who find a deeper sense of purpose, who learn to truly live only after facing the possibility of dying. Dr. Hayes recalls her own journey, how she lost her father to pancreatic cancer. That experience shaped her entire career. She admits that at first she was angry, even resentful, but over time she came to see that his illness had given her the gift of purpose. My father's death wasn't meaningless, she says. It became my mission to make sure others found light in their darkest hour. That mission led her to integrate science and spirituality, modern research with ancient wisdom. She describes the power of breath, of mindfulness, of being present. Every deep breath oxygenates the body, she reminds us. Every moment of stillness gives the immune system a chance to recalibrate. She encourages listeners to begin small. 5 minutes of quiet, a walk in the morning sun, a meal cooked with love and awareness. Healing doesn't demand perfection, it demands presence. The conversation with Dr. Hayes reveals a profound truth that the fight against cancer is not just a medical challenge, but a moral one. It calls on us to care for our planet, to reduce the toxins we create, to honor the balance that sustains all life. When we harm the earth, we harm ourselves. When we heal the earth, we heal too. As the first chapter draws to a close, Dr. Hayes leaves us with a thought that lingers. Cancer doesn't mean the end. It can be the beginning, the start of living with awareness, gratitude, and connection. The disease is real, but so is the power to heal. Her words fade into silence, but their echo remains. A challenge to look inward, to live differently, to believe that even in the face of darkness, the body, mind, and spirit hold an incredible capacity for renewal. The truth about cancer, as Dr. Hayes shows us, is not only about death, it's about life and how deeply we're willing to understand it. The studio lights are softer now, and the air feels still, almost sacred. Dr. Charlotte Hayes leans forward slightly, her eyes calm yet filled with conviction. She begins to speak again, and her voice carries the weight of experience, not just as a doctor, but as a human being who has witnessed both suffering and survival. She says that when most people hear the word cancer, their first emotion is fear, raw, paralyzing fear. Fear of death, of pain, of loss, of the unknown. That fear is understandable, but it can also become its own toxin. She explains that chronic fear activates the body's stress response, the constant release of cortisol and adrenaline, which over time weakens immunity, disrupts hormones, and fuels inflammation. In some ways, she says, fear feeds the disease it dreads. She pauses, then adds, but courage. Courage transforms biology. Dr. Hayes has spent years studying not just the physical science of healing, but the emotional patterns behind recovery. She recalls a woman named Maria, a young mother who was diagnosed with aggressive breast cancer. The prognosis was grim. Yet Maria chose to approach her illness with a different mindset. Every morning, she wrote down 3 things she was grateful for, even on days when her body ached from chemotherapy. She filled her hospital room with laughter, music, and sunlight. Slowly, her body began to respond. When her doctors reviewed her scans months later, they were astonished. The disease was retreating faster than expected. We can't always measure the power of belief in a lab, Dr. Hayes says, but we can't deny it either. She talks about energy, not in the mystical sense, but as a measurable force that governs every cell in the human body. The heart emits an electromagnetic field that can influence others around us. Thoughts, in their own way, are electrical impulses. When we live in constant negativity, she explains, our entire body chemistry shifts toward survival mode. But when we live in trust, gratitude, and love, we activate repair mode. Science, she says, is slowly catching up to what ancient healing traditions have always known, that energy, intention, and biology are not separate. They are one dance, one rhythm. Dr. Hayes turns her focus to the modern healthcare system. She doesn't criticize it harshly, but calls for evolution. She acknowledges the brilliance of medical science, the life-saving surgeries, the precision therapies, the genetic breakthroughs. But she reminds us that medicine should also be about humanity. We treat the tumor, she says, but we forget to treat the person. She recalls how, during her early years as an oncologist, she would walk into patient rooms with a chart and data, but rarely with presence. It took years, and the loss of patients she had come to love, to understand that healing isn't always about extending life. Sometimes it's about improving the quality of life, the peace within the days that remain. In the second half of her career, she began integrating what she calls whole-person protocols. This approach includes nutrition, meditation, sleep therapy, and community support. She discovered that when patients felt connected to themselves, to their families, to their faith, recovery outcomes improved. It wasn't magic. It was measurable, lower stress hormones, better immune function, improved treatment response. The body, she says, wants to heal. Our job is to stop getting in its way. Dr. Hayes describes cancer not as a punishment, but as communication. It's the body's final attempt to speak when all other signals have been ignored. The fatigue, the anxiety, the chronic pain, these were whispers. Cancer, she says, is the body's scream for balance. If we listen early enough, she adds, we might never need to hear that scream. Her words are powerful because they carry responsibility. She's reminding us that prevention isn't a luxury, it's an act of self-respect. She recounts a fascinating study where researchers examined people who lived in blue zones, areas of the world with exceptionally low rates of cancer and high life expectancy. What they found wasn't a miracle food or a secret herb. It was lifestyle. These people ate natural foods, moved daily, slept deeply, shared strong community bonds, and lived with purpose. They laughed often and spent time outdoors. Their lives were simple but deeply connected. Cancer, Dr. Hayes says, struggles to survive in a body and mind that are at peace. As the conversation deepens, she touches on something rarely discussed in mainstream media: forgiveness. So many patients, she says quietly, carry unresolved pain. Anger at parents, guilt about the past, resentment toward themselves. That emotional weight is a silent poison. When she guides patients through emotional release work, journaling, therapy, or spiritual practice, she often sees physical improvements. One woman with chronic inflammation, for example, saw her markers drop dramatically after finally forgiving someone who had hurt her decades ago. The body remembers everything, Dr. Hayes says. Every wound we bury becomes a stone we carry. When we let go, we lighten and healing begins. The dialogue drifts into the role of hope and its difference from denial. Hope, she says, isn't pretending everything is fine. It's believing that something good can come even from pain. It's the fuel that keeps patients showing up for one more treatment, one more sunrise. I've seen hope extend lives more than medicine ever could, she admits. It's not naive, it's biology. Hope releases chemicals that strengthen the immune system. Despair weakens it. Dr. Hayes also discusses the link between cancer and inflammation, emphasizing that almost every modern disease begins with chronic inflammation. Our bodies are under siege from processed foods, refined sugars, pesticides, and pollution. Even the light from our screens disrupts our natural rhythms. She explains how inflammation becomes the silent spark that triggers cell mutations, setting the stage for disease. But the antidote, she says, is within reach. A diet rich in antioxidants, regular movement, restful sleep, and time spent in nature. Healing isn't complicated, she says. It's consistent simplicity. She recalls another story, this one about an elderly man named Thomas who battled colon cancer. When he first met Dr. Hayes, he said he had spent his life working, never resting, never expressing emotion. He believed illness was weakness, but after his diagnosis, he began to change. He took up gardening, began painting, started attending a local support group. Within months, not only did his test results improve, his entire outlook on life transformed. He told me once, Dr. Hayes smiles, that for the first time in 70 years, he felt alive. The doctor pauses, reflecting on the paradox that illness often becomes the doorway to awakening. Sometimes, she says, the disease becomes the teacher. It strips away everything unnecessary. The ego, the pride, the distractions, and what remains is truth. That truth heals more deeply than any medicine. She then speaks about spirituality, not religion, but connection. Whether someone believes in God, the universe, or simply the energy of life, that belief creates resilience. Studies have shown that spiritual connection reduces mortality rates and improves coping during treatment. Dr. Hayes believes it's because faith creates meaning, and meaning gives the body a reason to keep fighting. When you know that your life has purpose, she says, your cells listen. The discussion shifts toward modern science, the future of cancer research. She's hopeful about the rise of personalized medicine, where treatment is tailored to an individual's genetic and metabolic profile. Yet she cautions that no technology can replace responsibility. We can't outsource our health to machines, she warns gently. No drug can replace daily habits. No surgery can heal a lifestyle that remains toxic. Her message is clear. Prevention and healing both begin with awareness. Dr. Hayes also addresses a common myth that cancer always returns. Relapse is not inevitable, she says firmly. It depends on whether the terrain has changed. When people return to the same environment, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, that bred the disease, recurrence is more likely. But when they transform that environment, when they change the way they live, love, and think, the odds shift dramatically. Healing, she says, isn't about going back to who you were. It's about becoming someone new. She concludes with a vision of what medicine could be, a partnership between science and soul, between technology and empathy, a world where hospitals feel like sanctuaries of healing, not fear, where doctors treat patients as participants, not cases, where every diagnosis becomes an opportunity for transformation. That's the truth about cancer, she says. It's not just about killing cells, it's about awakening life. Her final words are calm, yet they resonate with extraordinary power. If you or someone you love is walking through cancer right now, remember this. Your body is not your enemy. It's your ally, calling you home to balance. Listen to it, nurture it, forgive it, believe in it. Healing doesn't always mean cure, but it always means growth. And sometimes that growth can lead to miracles. The camera fades out slowly. The sound of her voice lingers in the air, gentle, truthful, unwavering. It's not just a story about disease, but about rebirth. The truth about cancer, as revealed by Dr. Charlotte Hayes, isn't just medical. It's human. It's about rediscovering what it means to live fully, love deeply, and care for the miracle that is the human body. And as the outro music rises softly, a voice, perhaps yours as the channel host, reminds the listeners, every moment you choose awareness, every breath you take with intention, every act of kindness to your body and mind, that's healing. This is fitness and mind wellness. Stay inspired, stay strong, and stay connected to life.